Happy Tuesday. How are you feeling, mamas, educators, papas, whoever is watching? How are you today? Today I really want to talk about responsibility and choices. It's something I've been digging into myself with my own growth and stuff this week. And it just blows my mind, actually, how many choices we have. And the choices that we have the opportunity to get to make, sometimes the choices that we don't get to make, sometimes the choices that we know we have that we are procrastinating on or avoiding. And it's just been striking me like how much opportunity we have. And this has come in light in, if you've seen in the media over the last few days, the riots and the protests over Mahsa Amini in Iran. And if any of you are not familiar with the story, she is a 22-year-old Iranian woman who was captured and detained by the, I think they have a morality police or something, for wearing a hijab too loosely. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right either, so please forgive me if I'm not. I think it's hijab, not wearing her clothes correctly. And the outpouring of this has been from all over the world, the protests, and the lack of freedom and the lack of choices that so many women still do not have, that it is shocking. But it really started making me question about, where are the choices? What are the choices that I am not taking? Like, where are the opportunities that I have that I'm avoiding? Like, and what is going on for me underneath that? So, as you know, if any of you have been in my space for a little while, I kind of like to dig into things. And for me, it's always about the thoughts. It's the thoughts. And what thoughts do we sometimes not take responsibility for? Because I know that if you're in my space, you are interested in raising wholehearted children. You're interested in becoming the very best version of yourself that you can be, the very best parent that you can be. At least I'm hoping you are. That's why you're in my space. But how much of that actually comes down to self-awareness and our ability to even notice what is going on? And what I mean by this, so let's, like, how many times in a day do we say, oh, they're really winding me up, this is really annoying me, this is, oh God. Classic, my mum this morning, Mitch was starting to tell jokes, we're starting to get ready, my mum's starting to get a little bit triggered, she's going, oh Mitch, you're being annoying. Is Mitch being annoying? Is my mum annoyed? And I look at that and I go, ooh, how many times do I do that? Because sometimes it's often easier to see things in different people. This is no blame or judgment on my mum. I love her very deeply. But I think sometimes when we can see it in others, we can see it in ourselves. And it's almost so much easier to see it in other people than it is to see it in ourselves. And so the invitation for you today is to be thinking about, where am I not taking responsibility for my own thoughts and my own emotions and my own actions? Because remembering that thoughts drive feelings and feelings drive behavior. So if it all starts with the thoughts, like, nobody can think my thoughts for me. Like, I wish they could sometimes. That would be really nice, wouldn't it? Like, nobody can think my thoughts for me. And therefore, if I'm sitting here thinking that something is annoying, then it's probably going to be annoying. And yet, my children can't be annoying. A situation can't be annoying. All that is a judgment that I'm putting on something based on the inherent stories and things that I'm carrying around with me, my emotional wounds, my thought processes, my beliefs. And I think sometimes it can be so easy to blame other people, previous experiences, our parents. And I'm not trying to detract in any way, because I know that there are many people that have suffered awful things, abuse and trauma and things that were not their fault. And I don't want to detract from that or minimize that in any way. However, there is also a moment in time where we have to go, well, we accepted these things or believed these things about ourselves to be true in the past. But yet, what are we now carrying into our future? And what can we change the way that we are thinking about something in order to change the way that we are feeling about something? Because if I am blaming my past or the way that I was raised or the experiences that I had or for what is going on in my life right now, then I am choosing to live in the past. That is a choice, a decision that I am choosing to make. Because everything is a choice ultimately that I am choosing to make right now, and I'm bringing that past experience into the present moment right now. So how do we take responsibility for it? Because there's so much blame for all of our thoughts. There's so much, like for example, my classic this morning, Mitch, you're being annoying. Mitch is not being annoying. Why is my mum annoyed? What is the thing that's going on underneath the surface? And can you imagine what kind of world we could live in is if every single time we were an observer of our thoughts, and instead of choosing those things, we chose to think about joy, about acceptance, about love, about how funny Mitch might have been with his joke book this morning. How, how actually, let's talk about procrastination, and because I am a demon at procrastination, let me tell you. Anyone else? Hands up. Who loves a good procrastinate? Oh, me too. Like, to the point that I will do so many other unimportant things, and I will literally start scheduling things into my diary, like when I have a really important deadline coming up and really important stuff. Do you do that? Why? Because we have a thought or a belief system running in our head that we're not good enough, that it's not going to be any good, that we're not going to make it, people will laugh at us. All of these stories, these thoughts that we are choosing to think. Now, I know that we did not learn the gift of flight by thinking about sinking. You don't learn how to swim by thinking about drowning. Am I right? So why is this? Our brain has this real negative bias, and it's constantly thinking, what if? What if? Do you catastrophize? Catastrophization. Oh my goodness, what if this happens and then this happens, and before you know it, everybody's died in a flood, and like all you were thinking of doing was perhaps, maybe I'll go out for a sandwich, and oh no, what if it rains? Our brain is constantly looking for the negative experience, particularly based on the belief systems that we have formed, our early programming in the first 7 years of life. So if you have any kind of trauma, and I just got to say, right, that every person that I know, everybody is dealing with trauma or negative stories or unhealed beliefs or unexpressed emotions in some way. And yet it is our responsibility to live and choose every single present moment, to choose what we think about. But the first step is in noticing. Because if you don't notice that is what is actually going on, like the ticker tape of doom, how are you going to begin to change it? And I want you to, the invitation for you is to think about what could you choose to think instead? What could you choose to express instead? What could you choose to do instead? If the outcome, what if it was going to be great? What if everything worked out? What if something wonderful was about to happen right now and all you had to do was take one step? Because I am telling you now that there is not one thing in this world other than trees and living things that did not at some point just start as a thought in someone's head. Even if you're wanting to change a habit, perhaps it's eating sugar, perhaps it's smoking, perhaps it's drinking, perhaps it's shouting, perhaps it's, I don't know, watching box sets every night when you could be doing something productive, or when you start to have these things, just our ability to be able to change thoughts is a process. nobody is able to go, right, okay, that's it, I'm going to become CEO of Virgin tomorrow. That's not how it works. But when we notice what is going on in our internal dialogue, and when we are able to then start to shift, how it tends to work for me is I find that I notice it first. And then what happens is I start trying to change and form a different concept, because it's this self-concept of ourselves that is the biggest problem. It's just a concept. Our beliefs about ourselves are just thoughts. That's all they are. And thoughts can be changed. And our children are our biggest teachers, because our children are reflecting at us all the time, all of the things, right, that we need to change the most about ourselves. They're our biggest teacher if we choose them to be. So when we start to change a thought, we notice the thought, and then I start to try to form a different concept about the thought that I'm feeling. So we go back to, instead of, okay, what if everyone's going to say, prime example, I was speaking at the Early Childcare and Education Expo on Saturday. It was glorious. It went beautifully. Probably the best live 45-minute talk that I've done, interspersed with music. I got to share my teachings on emotional frequency and energetics and how we introduce this to children, and it was so well received. But the day before, a couple of days before, I was in what if nobody gets it? What if I fall over? I'm just going to look stupid. I couldn't remember the beginning that I'd worked out my plan. And I always work and speak better when I'm not speaking from a script, always. So I like to have my intro. I know the songs I'm going to talk about, and I can talk about them because I know my subject matter. But I couldn't remember it. And I was thinking, what if nobody's there? What if it's just a bunch of teenagers and they're not interested in the work that I do? Because I've had that experience where it has just been a bunch of nursery assistants. No disrespect to nursery assistants, but they're not my people that I'm wanting to reach. I'm wanting to reach nursery owners. I'm wanting to reach parents. I'm wanting to reach early childcare educators. Is it going to be received? And a practice that I use all the time, but I think you will find incredibly helpful, is before I do any kind of speech, even sometimes before I come on here, because some days I feel really, really strong, and some days I feel like, oh, what if no one turns up? What if nobody likes what I'm saying? All of these things are just judgments and thoughts that I am choosing as a narrative in my head, and I can get to choose to change that at any point. And so I will often spend several minutes just sort of sending love to the people that I'm going to be talking to, connecting with them. Connection is everything. And seeing them, listening to what I'm saying, seeing penny drops on people's faces, seeing people dancing, because that's always the thing when I'm doing music. I tell you what, there is nothing more cringy than doing a music workshop and telling everybody that's going to be dancing and fun, and then you are dancing around like a loon in front of 40, 50 people and nobody is dancing. I mean, I promise you, I have no problem at any other point being the first one on a dance floor. Very happy. But you put me in a professional capacity, and suddenly it's about my work, which is about my baby, which is about songs that I've written, and suddenly it's so much more personal, right? And I'm the only way that I can make this work, because I know that everything that I do is about how I am feeling. Because I'm going to start projecting my thoughts onto this situation. I'm going to go in and I'm going to start thinking people don't like me. I'm going to start looking awkward. I'm going to start feeling uncomfortable. I'm not going to feel confident. I am going to start shrinking, and I'm going to start. And the more I feel like that, guess what? The more the people that are joining me are also going to feel like. We've all watched this, right, on X Factor, when somebody's really like painfully frightened and awkward. How you feel it? Okay, so we have this choice at any given moment to decide that it is going to go well. And I would love to know, I know lots of people watch this back on a catch up. I would love to know, if you give me a hashtag replay, how often do you actually go into something going, this is going to be amazing. This is going to work really well. This is a practice. This is something we have to cultivate cultivate as an experience with our children. How often are you going, oh God, this is going to be a nightmare? You're approaching a mealtime or a bedtime. They can already feel it because you're already nervous. You're already stressed. The tension is already mounting, right? We're contributing. We're actually not even contributing. We're creating a situation with what's going on in our heads. And that's not even reality. We have the ability to change our thought processes, change the way that we feel, which affects everybody around us, our children, our friends, our families. When we go into something assuming that we have common ground, assuming that people are going to get me, assuming that people, even if people don't get me at the beginning, they'll get me by the end. Even if they don't get some of the things that I'm saying, they're going to enjoy the music and they're going to have someone. I want people to leave my sessions feeling like smiling and happy, like they've had an experience. And that is why I spend 5 minutes like before anything like that. And this is something you can bring into your day. It's really, really useful. Just a few minutes visualizing it going incredibly well, that you being incredibly well received, visualizing your children doing exactly like this from this place of trust. That is where your power lies, from a place of trust, from a place of knowing and feeling in your heart and your bones that everything is going to work out exactly as it should. And what that helps other people do, including your children, is to receive it. People feel your trust. People feel your, I say comfortability. That's not a word, is it? I don't think comfortability is a word. People feel that. Your children, like when I come, so I have very strong intentions for my children and my parenting and my relationships. And when I operate from that place, not from a place of fear, not from a place of, oh, what's going to happen? This is going to be a nightmare. Oh my God. Like, they're going to melt down. They're going to be hungry. This is going to happen. When I show trust in an outcome, when I show trust in my children, always, my children rise to the occasion. The things go well, even if things go wrong. Like I had something go wrong once on one of my speaking events, but because I felt okay and knew that it was going to turn out okay, actually it became one of the highlights, one of these mistakes. It became one of the funniest parts of it, and everybody was amazing. And like I dropped a load of stuff and sort of tripped and dropped, but we were literally doing a song about making mistakes, so it couldn't have come at a better time, but it was okay and nobody died. So the invitation for you today is for you to think about, what are you projecting onto a given situation? How are your thoughts affecting how you're feeling, how you're showing up? And how can you change them into ways of loving, ways of trust, ways of knowing that it is going to work out exactly as it should? That is where I want to leave with you today, particularly following the events. And I would really like you to leave, my last thought is to think, actually, given the events with the Taliban and the pressures and the lack of freedom and the lack of choice and the lack of ability for women, for freedom of expression in so many parts of the world, how many choices you have, and that we owe it to them and we owe it to ourselves to take and make every single choice for the best outcome for all. I'd like to leave you with that thought today, because when I notice how many things are going well, when I notice how much freedom I have, that's when I make the best choices. So sending you so much love today. And I will see you all next Tuesday for more thought-provoking stuff. Stay fierce, you gorgeous humans. Have a gorgeous Tuesday.